What's up, YouTube? It's been a minute. Yeah. I just want to say, I want to talk about God, and I want to talk about deities. And it could be a trippy topic to talk about, because talking about deities or God in a non-religious context, yeah, it could be tricky, but yeah. So, God. When we say God, what are we usually talking about? Do you know what I mean? What are we usually talking about? Are we talking about a person? Are we talking about the collective? Are we talking about some, like, disembodied spirit? What are we talking about? What are we talking about when we say God? I do wonder. There's a Christian way of seeing it. There's a Hindu way of seeing it. There's a Buddhist way of seeing it. There's many ways of understanding the concept, but yeah, consciousness. Do you know what I mean? Consciousness. Consciousness meaning perception, maybe. Consciousness meaning feeling, maybe. Consciousness meaning your heart, maybe. Consciousness meaning when we say God, man, we're talking about the love in you. I'll tell you what I think. I think when we say God, as humans at least, what we're saying is what we're saying is like a space alien. Basically, it's a space alien. He's a space alien. That's what we're talking about. Yeah. I think when we say God, we're talking about a space alien from the planet, or at least the star system, Ina. And yeah, that's what I think. I think we're talking about a literal space alien on planet Blue Dog in the system Ina. And he's green. Like emerald green. And like yeah, I'm not sure exactly why I think that. Hear me out. I've had some experiences. Hear me out. I've had some experiences. When the Hindus say God, they're typically talking about Shiva or Vishnu. meaning God's destructive capacity or God's preservative capacity. When Christians talk about God, they mean typically either Jesus Christ or like this projected father figure. Yeah, Jehovah or Yahweh, as like somebody who like, yeah, like as Jesus says, like a son of God, or yeah, it depends on who you ask, but some Christians would say that Jesus was God incarnate. Some people would say Jesus was a son of God. But typically Christians, they see God as this like heavenly father figure with like a gray beard, like up in the clouds. The Hindus would say God dwells in Indaloka or Indraloka, like this realm of what they call the Devas, or like, yeah, gods, basically. Gods. And there's a capital G God, and then there's gods in Hindu mythology or Hindu belief systems, etc. Buddhists, when they say God, there's a lot of schools of Buddhist thought which do not believe in the idea of a God. It's kind of like atheistic like that. A lot of Buddhists would say that, yeah, what we're usually talking about when we say God is consciousness. And they would say that like consciousness doesn't have like a central control mechanism. So like the idea that there's like one true God of the universe seems kind of dubious to a lot of Buddhists. There's some Buddhists who, kind of like Christians, saw Buddha as an incarnation of God or Vishnu or Dattatreya. Yeah. So, but a lot of Buddhists are kind of like atheistic in that sense. There's many ways of understanding God, and it's interesting how there's so many different like summations or like conceptions, dualistic conceptions, but yeah, like ideas of what God is that popped up on this planet. It's interesting. Now I think, for some reason, in my 26 years of experience on Earth, for some reason, I think that God, if such a God exists, of course, I think that God is a green and blue duo in space. Not just in space, on and on. Yeah. Space aliens. No. Yeah. I think that God's a space alien. Now, I'm not a Jehovah's Witness, as such. I'm not a practicer of the religion. And I know there's a lot of like Jehovah's Witness thoughts and what is it called? Scientology beliefs that kind of tap into a similar vein or like a school of thought. But there's a lot of stuff that I disagree with when, yeah, like creation myths and stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not knocking any religion. Each one's as valid as the next. But I just think it's interesting. I've had like experiences in these last like few years that I've been meditating. Man, I've had some experiences, y'all. I've had some experiences. And as I currently understand reality I'm like damn sure. I'm damn sure that God is a green space alien named Nsebaga. And I'm damn sure about that. Now let me explain. Let me explain. How did my mind come to such a conclusion? You know, obviously I could be wrong about anything I've ever known. That goes without saying. However, based on what I've experienced in my 26 years, when we say God is consciousness, that's not too far off. Like the core of your heart, the core of your mind's eye, your third eye. Yeah, like when those two act as one, or when all of your chakras get aligned and enlightened and you transcend like your ego or your jiva or your name form. And there's like something there. There, not there. It's hard to explain. But yeah, when we say consciousness, what we're really talking about is like a non-dual loving awareness. Just kind of awareness. It hasn't much attribute to it. Unless you like kind of like pad that on, basically. When you transcend a lot of your personality and your consciousness, it just kind of do you know what I mean? Which, it begets the question, when it comes to personality, names, and name form, if consciousness is like inert or thoughtless, perhaps, like without conditioning, if that's raw consciousness, or what the Hindus would call like cosmic Shiva, as opposed to like Shiva the Destroyer, an incarnated name form, what the Hindus would call like cosmic Shiva, just like the sea or the ocean of sentience or presence or beingness. Yeah, again, any conception or thought or idea or attribute kind of falls short. But it's still kind of like an interesting thought experiment, I think. Yeah. Yeah. And so getting back to what I was saying about the space alien. Going back to what I was saying about the space alien. Yeah. So to kind of tie it all together, I'm kind of going all over the place, but I've had experiences, like, the more and more detached emotionally and detached, like, in a grip way, to my own body and to my own name form, I've accessed these, like, transcendent states of consciousness, and I've seen things. And, when we talk about the self, as Hindus would say, we talk about the self, there's so many books about like how to identify or distinguish the self from the experience, or even the experiencer, or like the or who you've been. Do you know what I mean? Like the experienced. There's so many ways to like try and figure out what's the self and what's not so much the self. What's the transcendent self? What's the incarnated self? Are there differences? There's so many notions and like paths and tactics to try and identify what's divine and what's devoid and what's hollow or even putrid, like the opposite of divine. Yeah, a lot of Hindus would say ultimately all of these dualities would fall flat, and so trying to make these distinguishments. Yeah, trying to distinguish such things, it's a moot point and ends up being utter nonsense. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I don't know. The more and more that I've like dabbled in non-dual perception, it's like, yeah, non-duality, kind of getting off topic, but then again, if God is something like a non-dual awareness of the present moment, when one perceives reality free of emotional distortion created by the ego, and also a lack of felt, perceived, like, the word duality works really well, but I mean, like, when you feel hot water or cold water, your brain, your mind, and like your mind stem, any of that shit, cannot distinguish that feeling at all. I mean, like touch. I've perceived states of consciousness where, like, when you turn music up on your speaker and turn it down, there's no difference to the ear. It's not just like a notion. Do you know what I mean? Literally, like, feelings that we would typically describe as positive and negative, any feeling at all, not just emotion, all the way to the extent of like how touch feels. There wouldn't be a difference between like digging my nail into this index finger right now. Yeah. Between doing that and not doing that. Between pain and pleasure. Between this texture on my table and the texture on these PJ pants. Like, I wouldn't be able to perceive a difference or a dualism or a duality, meaning where one ends and the other begins. And it's not the same thing as not feeling anything. It doesn't amount to like just TV static like it does in Akasha when you zoom out. It doesn't amount to TV static or just nonsense. It's an actual tangible change in how you feel your environment and your body and all of it. And when I've been in those states, getting back to the topic of God, when in those states, there's also no duality between above and below, or like your inner child and your inner adult, or the core of your heart, the core of your mind. There's no duality between you and God when you're in those states. And y'all, I'll tell you what. Feeling like that, not much other than the perceivable duality changes compared to like the ordinary states of consciousness that we experience. Not much changes, especially talking in terms of control or not much changes. So when we say God as humans, man, what are we usually talking about? Does it mean someone who has complete and total control over reality? Someone who has omniscience? Someone who has omnipotence? Someone who's like nothing but love? What are we talking And the more that you like pick apart that idea, the more and more you realize like what could possibly exist that would fit that description. And if it exists, is God good or is God evil for allowing all the bad shit that happens to happen? And if that's the definition of God, somebody who has complete and total power and control over everything that happens, where is he? What's he doing? Does he see every single thing that happens? It just makes you wonder. It makes you wonder. But I've also had experiences where my mind's eye, kind of my third eye, I could like close these two eyes here and I would be able to, I still can, but yeah, like open two other eyes. And same, third eye. And I'd experienced this palace, which the Hindus talk about this when they say like the self lives in like, yeah, a city with 9 gates, which is like correlate to the 9 gates of the body. But yeah, the Hindus say the self lives in a palace with 9 gates with a bunch of devas. And yeah, the Brahman or Om or Dattatreya, or you could say Shiva or Vishnu. Yeah, Brahma's a part of that trinity just as much as the other two. But yeah, it gets debated all the time which one is like the central figure. Indeed, Vishnu, probably. Meaning time or goodness, as we say. Like when we say, oh my goodness, or how are you doing today? Are you doing good? There is this aspect of eternity or reality. And he's a person. And that's what we call goodness. And it's Vishnu. At least according to Hindu thought. But yeah. When we tell somebody to be good, we're telling them to be Vishnu. To be present. And to be one with time. To flow with time zero. And not resist it or try and fight it. To be Vishnu. We tell somebody to be good or ask somebody how they're doing. Yeah. Good? It's Vishnu. And that's also where nirvana is to be found, by the way. Little segue there. That's where nirvana is to be found. The more and more that you flow with time, and the more and more that you become present, as opposed to being lost in thought, or mostly that, to be honest. Mostly lost in thought's the only way to not be present. Now, even if you're checked out in that way anyway, yeah, it's still present, just on a different planet, basically. But, yeah. In case you're wondering how to find nirvana. In my experience, that's where it's at. The more and more that you just experience the present. That's it. Yeah, it just becomes bliss, man. It just becomes bliss. So as the Hindus describe, this self, which lives in a city with 9 gates, in my experience, that is a direct correlate to this ziggurat. This ziggurat, which exists on this planet called Blue Dog in the Innos system. Yeah, it doesn't come from just like creative ideas that like some yogis like Shiva just conjured up and like you know what I bet God is? I bet God's like this. Yeah. In my experience, these scriptures and even it connects directly to Jesus Christ as well. These aren't disparate gods. They're not separate. And they didn't come from just like random ideas. it comes from a source. All of these like ideas of God that we have as humans, it comes from a source. And in my experience, that's the source. On and on. Yeah. And basically, if you're trying to experience this place, or the activities which go down there, there's many routes there. Acid works great. Weed can help. Psychedelics, basically. Consciousness expansion. Yoga helps a lot as well. The Upanishads, get a good idea of it. But yeah, letting go, basically. That being said, you never know. There's no surefire way to like manifest experience as you, Like, even if you take acid, you don't know if you're gonna have a good trip. You don't know if you're gonna end up expanding your consciousness in the way that you'd like. You just never know. So there's no guarantees when it comes to any of this shit. But y'all, I'm telling you right now, don't believe me? Go find out. 26 minutes. Yeah. God is real. And he's a person. Now, he's a space alien. And in a person. But he's a person. Now, he doesn't have ultimate control, obviously. The less interference, the better, to be honest. But yeah, he's a person. And he's a really good person, too. Yeah. Oh, I could go on forever about it. Black holes. The energetic body. How it all connects, etc., etc. I could go on forever about it. The unity beneath the complexity, singularities, etc., etc. There's a lot to talk about when it comes to this. Yeah, but I have literally, with my two eyes, maybe not these two eyes, but with my third eye and with these two eyes, yeah, but I've literally seen this place the same way I'm seeing this place right now. I've literally seen this place in real time, like not just like moment to moment or like flashes of it. I mean like seen this place. And I've seen NA people. And I've actually experienced from, do you remember that name I spilled earlier? In Sebago, or Chego, or Chago. Yeah. In Siabu Agawatan, as they say. Yeah, but, so, I've experienced from that guy's perspective, while he was getting butt fucked, in fact. It was a good time. It's possible, you know what I mean? Yeah, shoot for the stars and you get there, but, man. Yeah, there's lots of ideas of God and what God's like, and like, yeah, there's lots of like Buddhist temple art depicting like Kundalini and like fire rings and like intertwining deities and like colors like ice blue, indigo, and green and turquoise, and yeah, and ideas like Jesus Christ and Shiva and Vishnu and Brahma, and man, it all totally comes from somewhere. And I've seen the place where it comes from. And no one religion gets it perfectly right. Do you know what I mean? like just nails it on the head. Yeah, Tibetan Buddhism and Hinduism get it pretty close. But yeah, it's not like some other realm. It's not somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? Ish. It's a planet over there. Yeah. It's a planet over there, boy. Yeah, like the realm of the Devas or Indaloka or... Yeah, man, it's a planet over there, boy. Straight up. Nobody has to believe me on this shit, but if you're curious, if you're like a spiritual aspirant, or if you're reading books about this shit, and if you're meditating, if you're doing your Om Namah Shivas, and spinning your chakras, and enlightening your shit, boy. Yeah. Don't believe me, find out. Do you know what I mean? But, yo, I've experienced from, like, yeah, the central deity in just about every single religion. Yeah, Jesus, Vishnu, whatever name you want to use, man. Whatever name you want to use. I've experienced from that guy's perspective, vantage point, from his third eye. During this life, while I was alive, I didn't have to die to experience that. I didn't have to die. Now, could that be because I'm like some special persons that I had special access? You were that, by the way, Piper. Okay. I had special access. Maybe. But right, that's my question. How did the Hindus and the Buddhists and Jesus, how did they find out? Was it just like a random series of people who happen to also have special access? And some of us, but not all of us? No, of course it's not. Of course it's not. Yeah. Of course it's not. But yeah, basically the message of the video, yeah, shoot for the stars and you'll get there. You can't expect it, you can't guarantee it, and there's no one right practice. American Tantra. Is it the same thing as the Yantra? There's lots of, there's lots of techniques to try and get yourself there, and to try and perceive from that vantage point. Especially when we talk about the Upanishads and the self, and the city of Brahman, and the core of the heart, or your third eye, stuff like that. There's no one right way to get there. But man, that shit's real. That shit's real, boy. In fact, based on what I've experienced when I was there, yeah. Anyway, when I was there, I don't know how to describe this eloquently articulately, but it's more real than typical human consciousness, let's say. It's quite literally, it's not just clearer. It's not just yeah. It's not just clearer. It's more real. All the way through. Not just internally, not just how you're perceiving your surroundings. It's more real. Somehow. So yeah, I recommend meditation yoga. The Upanishads are a great book. And the Gita, and the Dhammapada, maybe the Bible. These are good books. And any religion can get you there. Religion's not the end goal, if there's even an end goal. But it can get you there. Yeah. That space alien's the same person as Jesus Christ, by the way, in my experience. That space alien that I'm talking about? He's Jesus. And he's still alive. He's still alive. Yeah. You know it. Whatever. Yeah. Yeah. So, like, yeah, the same person that we're talking about when Christians say Jesus, and when the Hindus say, like, Vishnu, or Data, or, like, Buddhist deities. I don't know if Buddhists would call them deities, right? But, yeah, like, the temple art. I don't know what that temple art's called, but yeah, like the fire ringy, like kundalini snaky, like intertwining deity art. Man. We're talking about straight up like two people, one person, but two people. All that shit. It's two space aliens, boy. It's two space aliens in this ziggurat on this planet over there. Yeah. And it's real. It's hella real. Yeah, I don't need to keep going on and on about this. But yeah, I'm not saying anything about like what these aliens can do, like what powers they have. I'm not saying anything about that. I don't really know, to be honest. I've seen some things, but I don't really know. But I will say, for any spiritual aspirants out there, I've seen from his third eye. I have seen from his perspective. And yo, that space alien that we call Jesus or etc. Yeah. It's real. He's real. Very real. And still actively alive and participating in the experience of reality, or consciousness, or anti-consciousness, whatever you want to say. Yeah. They ain't gone. They ain't like in this realm that Christians would call heaven, as in like some otheristic, like just in the clouds, I guess. Yeah, like some other place. I mean, basically it's heaven. But yeah, it's not so other. Do you know what I mean? It's a planet over there. Like 15,000 light years away, I think. Basically next door neighbors. And yeah. Oh, I could go on about how, like when we say the missing link. When we talk about the missing link, like the special little X factor. I'm making these faces because my higher self has been like trying to get me to not talk about like any of this shit for a while, and it feels nice to do it. But yeah, hi. But yeah, my mind got erased, but that's okay. But yeah, what was I talking about? Planet over there, 50,000 light years, next door neighbors. Man, I forget. Oh, the missing link. Yeah, got it. The missing link. Like that special little X factor that makes humans like just kind of weirdly different from our nearest cousins from other apes. Like chimps and bonobos and chimpanzees and baboons and gorillas, they all kind of had the same vibe. Do you know what I mean? And humans, we're obviously not super different. We're obviously not super like just black and white. Other than we're very clearly primates, but man, there's something like differentiating, that word, right? Like differentiating humans from our primate cousins, our primate cousins. And a lot of people have called that X factor or whatever the missing link, and also like where language came from. Yeah, man, those genes that I'm talking about, like that X factor that like elevated or like perpetuated humanity's evolution in the direction that it has gone in. So, that missing link, it's innate genes, which were spliced into primitive humans or primates. Yeah, to like, I don't know, like an Homo habilis or Homo erectus or some shit like that. And Neanderthals, yeah, humans, ancestors. The NA people came to Earth at some point, a while ago. And just like bees pollinating flowers, do you know what I mean? Yeah, they came here and they shared their seed, boy. The fucking seed. And yeah, we look like them a lot. We look a lot like them. Yeah, maybe we look a little childish or young compared to an NA person because we're less evolved. But yeah, they have bigger heads. They have like, yeah, you know, like Indiana Jones, Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, or like, you know, Egyptian mythology with the Ankh and like the big-headed people, and like how there's some tribes that like do skull squeezing and stuff like that. Yeah, to impress the gods or whatever. So, yeah, and the people they got heads like they go back to hold on. Yeah, like here. It's like this. So, and they're like taller than humans. Same proportions. Like we're not just like skinny grays or like stereotypical like clip art drawings of aliens. Same proportions basically, same build, same muscle complex, same throat structure. Yeah. Bigger heads. And their eyes are jet black. Yeah, like kind of like this shape. Yeah, they're bigger and they're jet black. Which, yeah, like, that almost makes them seem like kind of like vaguely demon-like. Not really, to be honest. They're beautiful people. They're beautiful people. But yeah, their eyes, it's all pupil. It's all pupil. And it cannot contract. Even when it's really bright out. It's all pupil. And you know how the pupil is like what lets light into your eyes, and also you can kind of see like right there, there's like light shining out of it as well. It's like a doorway, kind of. And NA people, their eyes are all pupil. And like, yeah. And I don't know, I think that's kind of like, it's almost brave of evolution. It's almost brave because, right, when your pupils are dilated, let's say, and there's like a flash of bright light, your pupils will contract literally as quickly as they possibly can, because the pain of bright light when you have big pupils is that potent or severe. Imagine having eyes that were all pupil. you would be, as if anybody gets to make this decision, right? But evolution basically accepted the risk of that pain. Think of non-dual perception, no difference between pain and pleasure. Do you know what I mean? It just kind of makes sense evolutionarily. But yeah, man, all for the depth of perception or the consciousness level. Like, yeah, I think it's kind of magical. Yeah. And that's where the crystal skeletons and all that shit from Indiana Jones came from. And like, you know, I could just go on, man. I could go on. Now, could the argument be made that all of this is like Maya connection? Like, you could say, maybe. Bet you it isn't. Bet you it is. Yeah, I know nobody's gonna see this video, man. Nobody's gonna see this video. No spoilers. But yeah. Jesus Christ is a space alien, and he's green, in space, having gay sex, right now. And I can see it. I can see it. Yeah. He's alive. He's doing fine. I feel nice, actually. But yeah. That's all I gotta say. That's all I gotta share. 46 minutes of just pure gold. Strip bars versus poetry. How egotistical narcissistic is that? Bet you don't know who said it. Anyway. Anyway. Namaste, y'all. Om Namah Jesus. Om Namah Jesus. Om Namah Shivaya. Om Namah Tata. Om Namah Indra. These are real, actual people. Now, they may be space aliens. They may be space aliens. But they're people. These are people. These are actual people. They're breathing right now. They're not gone. They're not in some other dimension, as if dimensions were realms, as opposed to just the perspectives of the 9 chakras. Yeah. I'm not selling anything, but books like the Upanishads, man, they're worth a read. They're worth a read. Yeah. Don't believe me? Go find out. That's all I gotta say. Om Namah Shivaya. See y'all later.